welcome science fiction fans to the next installment of That Sci-Fi Guy. Today, we're taking a look at a classic movie starring Sylvester Stallone. No, a gun-toting Stallone. No. One where he's a cop. A cop with a mismatched female partner. Okay, smartass. A science fiction cop movie set in the future with a completely different kind of law enforcement. And it has Rob Schneider. Demolition Man. Unlike Judge Dredd, this was actually a good movie. And not because it's easy to ridicule. Demolition Man was a genuinely well-written film that fits into a subgenre of time travel movies I like to call the Frozen Man. In these movies, the protagonist is sent on a one-way trip to the future. He can be frozen, put in suspended animation, or transported to the future through some other techno-babbly means. The common elements are that there's no going back, and that the future is an exaggeration of the problems of today. Our hero, of course, brings the wisdom of our age to help enlighten the silly, misguided people of the future.
Exactly! It's none of our concern.
That's the 20th century spirit.
Or not. This movie begins in what appears to be a post-apocalyptic LA. Or maybe the Lakers just lost or possibly won the big game. Wait, 1996? When did this movie come out? 93? I know that gang violence was a big theme in the early 90s, but this is only 3 years after the movie's release date. This place looks like an active war zone.
Remember when they used to let commercial airlines land in this town?
Our hero is John Spartan, a badass renegade cop who does what it takes to get the job done.
Destroying a $7 million mini-mall to rescue a girl whose ransom was only $25,000.
Fuck you, lady!
Here we find him extreme sporting his way into the lair of a gang lord who's holding hostages. Wesley Snipes plays Simon Phoenix, a man who enjoys peroxide, colored contacts, and trying to take over LA, starting with the public services.
Policemen figured it out, but the goddamn bus drivers just wouldn't listen.
He's the kind of guy who's willing to blow up a building while he's standing in it out of pure spite.
Set your ass on fire.
Our hero rescues him from the burning barrels of C4. Okay, I'm not even going into how many levels of wrong that is. The building explodes, John Spartan is blamed for the death of the hostages, and sent to a cryo prison. You know, we never actually see the hostages, and his team saw the same thermal readout that he did. Not to mention half the city was on fire at the time. You'd think they would have cut him some slack. But I guess you can't have a Frozen Man story without a Frozen Man. Jump forward 36 years and it's time for Simon Phoenix to rise from the ashes. Ice Cube. He manages to escape from his parole hearing and starts playing Grand Theft Auto. But this future hasn't seen a murder in 22 years. So it's like he's playing with all the cheat codes.
We're police officers. We're not trained to handle this kind of violence.
Lucky for them, the one man who can bring Simon Phoenix down also happens to be in the freezer. John Spartan is thought out and given a very rude awakening.
It has been deemed that anything not good for you is bad, hence illegal. Alcohol, caffeine, contact sports, meat, bad language, chocolate, gasoline, uneducational toys, and anything spicy. Abortion is also illegal, but then again, so is pregnancy if you don't have a license.
In this future, everybody has a chip implanted in their hands so that they can be tracked at all times. And judging by the footage they're able to get, everything is made out of cameras. And auto-edited. An auto-editor. I need one of those. They don't have physical contact, and their language is censored.
Sanctimonious asshole.
You are fined 1/2 credit for a sotto voce.
You might think people would be upset by all of this, but instead it's made them naive to the point of being special.
The dogs kids love to bite.
It's like everyone here is an overgrown child. The guy who built this society must be,
An evil Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, that sounds about right. John Spartan's new partner is Detective Lenina Huxley, played by a young Sandra Bullock. Like most of the people in her society, she behaves like a child. But they do give her a couple of scenes to show that she takes her job seriously. She's the closest thing this place has to a real cop. They have her doing things like typing furiously, even though everything is voice activated, and taking care of business when it's needed.
I want a visual. Now! Every corner of the museum, I want full sensors routed to me, and I want it 90 seconds ago.
These scenes aren't pivotal, but they complete a character that would otherwise be nothing but a comic relief sidekick.
He's finally matched his meat. You really licked his ass. Let's go blow this guy.
Blow this guy away.
Whatever.
They are joined by Detective Alfredo Garcia and Police Chief George Earl, but the incompetence of their police force renders them pretty much useless. Of course, they don't really need to be expert crime fighters. Considering everyone has a chip in their hand and there's cameras everywhere, it's like George Orwell's Wet Nightmare. And when they do have criminals, they just reprogram them in the cryo prison with an occupational skill. Thanks to this, John Spartan was turned into a seamstress?
Oh, a seamstress? Oh, that's just great.
While Simon Phoenix, however, got some upgrades. As it turns out, someone was in need of an assassin, so they just programmed one.
I know Kung Fu.
Huh. I guess he's literally playing with all the cheat codes enabled.
Damn, I'm possessed.
As I said earlier, in a Frozen Man story, the future is generally an exaggeration of the problems of today. Except instead of choosing LA gang violence as the problem,
considering the way things were going when I went in, I thought the future would be a rotting cesspool.
They went for the other dire plague of the early 90s. Political correctness.
Political correctness, or being PC, is showing an effort to make broad social and political changes to address injustices caused by prejudice. It often involves changing or avoiding language that might offend anyone, especially with respect to gender, race, or ethnic background.
And of course, the drive to change everything so that it wouldn't offend anybody led to inevitable backlash. And no one exemplified contempt for this more than comedian Dennis Leary. And since this is the ultimate politically correct society, the biggest threat would need to be the ultimate Dennis Leary.
God, I love to hate this place.
Played by Dennis Leary? Okay, sure he fit the role perfectly, but he wasn't really acting.
I'm the kind of guy who likes to sit in a greasy spoon and wonder, gee, should I have the T-bone steak or the jumbo rack of barbecue ribs with the side order of gravy fries?
I love to smoke, I love to eat red meat, and I only eat red meat that comes from cows who smoke, okay?
I want high cholesterol. I want to eat bacon and butter and buckets of cheese, okay?
Happiness comes in small doses, folks. It's a cigarette or a chocolate chip cookie or a 5-second orgasm. That's it, okay?
It's like he just showed up on set and they gave him some dirty clothes. Dr. Cocteau had created his ultimate society, but he feared that Edgar Friendly would destroy it. With the power of Leary.
Mr. Friendly seems relentless in his ambition to infect our harmony with his venom. He must, of course, be stopped.
Since the authorities don't use violence, and there's no killer robots in this future, he needed Simon Phoenix 2.0. No, I just mean they upgraded him with new skills and abilities. What is wrong with you? And to keep the homicidal assassin from whacking him, he takes a cue from RoboCop.
What's the matter, officer? It's a little insurance policy called Directive 4.
You know, that would be a pretty good plan if you didn't let him talk you into defrosting some henchmen that didn't have Directive 4. Dude, you thought out Governor Jesse the Body Ventura. What did you think was gonna happen? The language they use is kind of an evolution of political correctness. In addition to being unoffensive, everything they say is very formal.
I can't even conceive a visual of what you police officers did before it was developed.
Locate precise code fix on doctor's conveyance.
Mellow greetings, Lenina Huxley.
Everyone is referred to by their first and last name, or their title and last name. There is, however, one exception. Associate Bob. Not only is he the only person without a last name, his first name is a nickname. My theory? He is the government. He sets up all the meetings, authorizes all the labor, and controls all the information. No matter who has the power, the bureaucracy goes on.
I am an excellent associate, sir. I would be delighted to continue my services during your administration. Greetings and salutations, Edgar Findlay. I'm Associate Bob.
Oh, and they get cool points for putting Otho back in a kimono. Unlike a lot of movies set in the future, they didn't really focus on the technology. But there was still some pretty cool stuff. We see Skype, aerodynamic cards with lots of readouts, and voice-activated everything.
Self-dive on.
These are things they didn't have in 1993, but they were all imagined and in development. The freezing effect wasn't really explained, but it looked good and was needed for the plot. I really liked this foam stuff as an airbag replacement, but their car does get one fail.
Auto-inflate!
Auto-inflate.
That's a neat feature, but did they forget the meaning of auto in the last 36 years?
Auto, short for automation, meaning moving of oneself, self-acting, spontaneous.
Come to think of it, they seem to have forgotten a lot of things while John Spartan was frozen. I can understand Lenina Huxley getting things wrong about the 20th century. It was before she was born. But some of these people were around in John Spartan's day. I mean, come on.
You don't know how lucky you are that Maniac didn't whack you.
Well, I must say that whacking, whatever it is, sounds most disagreeable.
You were in your 30s when John Spartan was frozen, and you don't know what being whacked is? What, was there a big explosion at the Flashy Thing factory? That could explain why they thought the museum exhibit on violence needed live ammunition. And why the people in the sewer forgot there was a whole world outside this city. Couldn't they have just gone to Mexico? And then, of course, there are the 3 seashells.
The 3 seashells replace the use of wadded tissues to clean up after a bowel...
Stop! No. I really just don't want to know. Oh, and Dr. Wiki, don't ever call me again when you're on the toilet. Even Dennis Leary's People Under the Stairs contingent has some impressive technology, like this graffiti gun. Now wait a second, who made that thing? I can understand somebody putting together a periscope out of scraps, but this thing is an intricate and advanced piece of machinery. It seems to serve no other purpose. The sewer people can't feed themselves, but they can make this. Maybe if they hadn't squandered all their resources on this gun, they wouldn't have to live on stolen Taco Bell salsa. Ultimately, we find Simon Phoenix about to resurrect an army of scumbags at the cryo facility.
Jeffrey Dahmer? I love that guy!
The movie concludes with a satisfying action scene. Gun battles, martial arts, fire, ice, and a laser that turns into a proton pack. You know, when I decided to review this movie, all I remembered was a few of the jokes and that they dressed Wesley Snipes as my buddy.
My buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy.
I thought it would be easy to make fun of, but as it turns out, it's a really good movie. The action is exciting, but still believable. The future speak, the names, and the writing in general were well thought out. The plot was consistent, mostly, and the continuity was unreal. In the running gag with violations of the verbal morality statute, they didn't slip up once. The only times we didn't hear the buzzer were in the sewers and in Dr. Cocteau's office after John Spartan shot the speaker. They didn't overuse their gags either. I think Simon Phoenix could have gotten away with a couple more Simon Says.
Simon says bleep!
Simon says die.
Simon says stand!
Demolition Man has its flaws, but it manages to be a clever satirical comedy and a blockbuster action movie at the same time. Definitely worth watching, or re-watching if you're like me and all you remember is Taco Bell and overalls. In the TikToks between the present and when we next fiber opt, I present to you this abbreviated science fiction visual.
Christ! I was frozen today!